Peace be with you. Let's talk about terrorism, extremism, and hypocrisy. All of us, no matter our skin color, our nationality, our proclaimed religious creed, all of us should be against these things because these are terrible things. All terrorists are extremists, and it is the extremist mindset that all people should be against. Extremists tend to see the world in black and white, and they tend to excuse their actions as justified no matter what. And hypocrisy is an important part of this equation, especially out here in the West. A lot of times when terrorist groups such as ISIS and people who proclaim to be Muslims but do very, very bad things are mentioned out here in the West, people can immediately recognize it as terrorism and condemn it as such, rightfully so. But a lot of times when they do that, they assume this moral ground as if their own government is, and I'm talking any Western government, has not done so much evil and so much terrorism to make ISIS look like rookies, right? Western governments are floating on pools of blood and millions of bodies based on unjust wars, and that is simply a fact. Now, when these people talk about ISIS and these terrorist groups, they tend to, and this is the extremist mindset again, they say all Muslims are like that, right? Even though ISIS had, what, a couple 100,000 members, and as a percentage of the world's 1.5 billion Muslims, they're a very, very, very small percentage. But the extremist mindset wants to broadly generalize, whether it's racism or whether it's, in this example, Islam, as they're all guilty and all of them are enemy, and that is extremism. On the other hand, the people that have inflicted so much pain and suffering through these unjust wars, i.e. the Western governments, they are also a very small percentage of the Western population. They have all the power. They control all the education. They control all the media. They control all the politics. And although we get to vote, they always do the same thing. And just like ISIS is a very small percentage of the population of Muslims, the Western governments, people who have power, political power out here in the West, are a very small percentage of population, and this power is concentrated in families. So it isn't really Americans or any other Western people who are at fault for this. So that is one thing that everybody needs to understand, is extremists hold power, and it is on people who are not extremists to resist the temptation to broadly generalize a group of people just because some people who claim to be among them, the extremists, have chosen violence as a way. Now, we got to talk about terrorism. Not all violence is terrorism, right? Sometimes you're defending your land, and that's not terrorism. Even though they will call you a terrorist, that's not terrorism. The people, for example, who are, fighting off colonial attempts in the Middle East, they're not terrorists. Sure, some of those people may choose to target civilians, and those are terrorists, because we shouldn't be doing that. But in general, people who are fighting against a military machine that has come to their land and is trying to take away their land, just like, for example, Russia invading Ukraine or whatever, if you can see that as justified, then you should certainly see people in the Middle East defending their own country as justified, because it is justified. And these people aren't terrorists. And as far as terrorism in the West, just because you have a big military and fancy machines and high, technology machines, that doesn't mean that the bombs you drop are not terrorism. Look, a terror, quote-unquote terrorist, a suicide bomber, a person that would deliver a bomb in a truck, they wouldn't do that if they had a jet airplane, right? They wouldn't be a suicide bomber. They would be a pilot. A bomb is a bomb, and it doesn't discriminate. It is a tool of terror. So whether you drop it from an airplane or you drive it in a truck, it doesn't really matter. It's the same thing. It is the same thing. Your means do not make the difference between terrorism and not terrorism. Your cause does. So this is something that's very important for all people to recognize, not just Muslims, but Christians and every person with a conscience. Number one, we cannot broadly generalize groups of people. Number two, we have to understand that a small minority of people who happen to be extremists can drive our consciousness, can drive our policies, and make all of us look bad. And it is on us to fight against them. That's the real enemy, is extremism. It isn't the West, it isn't the East, it isn't this religion or that religion, it is extremism, because it is the extremists that can lead all of us in the center and to hell. And if once extremists have power, you will serve them, whether you're their enemy or under their control. You will somehow either be killed by them or you will serve them. And that is why it's important for all of us to fight against extremism and terrorism, but especially hypocrisy. Peace be with you.